I do think that's the more pragmatic and realistic approach, if we're being honest, versus sort of saying, I'm going to go out and I'm going to get 500% gross margin on these. You're quickly going to find that you don't start there. You might end up there, but you don't start there. So start with a humble heart, but know exactly, have a focus, steal your vision on where you want to go. Learn from others who have done it and who've maybe failed in it as well, right? I mean, there's no shame in the game to say that I failed here and here's the lessons learned.
What's up, everyone? It's Eric Vessels. Welcome back to Taktiful Tuesdays. I'm super glad that you're here. A little while back, we had this fella, Andrew Gunn from Fujifilm, on the show. Let's just say that episode got people talking a little bit, so we dug into digital embellishment, the Revoria lineup, Fujifilm's Aspire program, and the big idea of moving from beyond CMYK to unlock some serious ROI. Well, Andrew's back. Andrew, welcome back to the show. You're the first return guest. 2-time appearances. You're on the board with 2. I think it was like episode 4. We're on 25. What are we on now? 25, I think.
It's getting up there, man.
Welcome back to the show. Yeah, I'm
starting
to learn how to do this thing.
Yeah. I'm starting to wonder, are you qualified now? Like, is that what's the crossover for that one, Eric?
Well, it's probably 24 episodes. So I mean, okay. You should have waited and not done episode. No, it was a really good one, but
it was good. Yeah, it was good. It was just before Christmas. It was the busy time of the season, but
yeah, it's
good to see where we've come from. We got a busy time coming up for both of us. I know that I think you and Kevin have been road warriors, right? How many places have you guys been out to since we spoke? How many countries? How many flights have you taken?
Gosh, not as much as when I was at What They Think, but a lot. Like we've gone to couple 3 different open houses, a couple of events out in Vegas. So we've been doing the circuit. It ramps up.
He finally came to our house in Chicago, so thanks for that.
Yes, for sure. Going back to Chicago here pretty soon.
That's right. Yeah.
So I wanted to ask you, I mean, we touched a lot on moving beyond CMYK.
Yeah.
And I wondered, what are some real world examples that you've seen lately where brands are using embellishment, either in unexpected or standout ways, or since we last talked, like what have you seen where you went?
It's interesting you say it. I don't know if I can say that like they're doing it any differently, or maybe that I just didn't notice it before, but you do sort of tend to, when you actually do it, you do tend to notice it a little bit better. And it's funny you mentioned, I was going through, I was in Madrid beginning half of this week, and I was going through Madrid airport, and I was like, whatever, I bought a pack of gum. It was a pack of Orbit gum, like, that you see kind of thing. The first thing I noticed, it's got embellishments all over it. It's got like matte green, it's got metallic green, it's got clear varnish. Orbit, right? So you start noticing it on packaging. And as well, I was also in Japan about a month ago, where the one thing if you've been into a 7-Eleven in Japan, I think you've been there, right?
Yeah.
The first thing you notice in 7-Eleven Japan is it's way different than a 7-Eleven here in North America. But it's the packaging. It just jumps out off the shelves, like the pinks, the fluorescence, that all of these great, crazy, plethora, rainbow of colors coming at you, but for different kind of products because they've got to stand out. So you just notice it a little bit more, and then it's funny because we're also talking about how to apply it in practical terms. I think you use the term. And I was noticing on Revoria Flow and our DFE, we're using, I think it's the ability to use AI capabilities for adding embellishments. That's the thing that kind of threw me. I knew that there was some sort of impact of generative AI and design, as you know, like that's kind of coming from Adobe and some of the different agents out there. Agentic AI is the fact that, using these sort of bots to go out and look for things in a file, look for things that can be embellished, right? So I think Agentic AI is the kind of, I was going to say generative AI was, but Agentic AI is one of those real-time things that I think is going to be coming, especially when you look on the RIP or the DFE side. Like I said, we're using it with Revoria Flow. I know that's kind of a nuanced, multi-layered answer there, but it's kind of crazy how you see it kind of coming at you as not just that it's what it represents in the market, but all the things that are going to kind of morph it into going from design to just having it designed for you using AI.
Yeah, for sure. Well, it's funny you say that because it's almost like when you you feel like, well, you've never seen a certain type of car, and then you see one, and then you just start seeing them all over the place.
Exactly.
I
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
forget what
yeah.
that cognitive bias is called,
Oh,
but
it's
it's
like, oh, is that the count the red cars? And you never thought you saw a red car? What was that? The something like
yeah,
that?
and all of a sudden, like they're everywhere. I think the same thing is true. And what you mentioned with the orbit is like we teach this all the time. Brands who are trying to get shelf velocity and shelf space, they'll start off if they're in that game, and it
Yeah.
sounds to me like Orbit is, right. They're trying to raise shelf velocity and trying to get more space, so they're
Hmm.
embellishing the heck out of it.
Hmm.
But what happens is once that brand is established, they start to dial that back because people are now going to look for it, right?
Yeah.
So there's a difference between getting your attention and already having your attention. So I think it's fascinating that you've noticed that, because
Yeah.
that's definitely a real world example of what's happening with embellishments there, and that proves the psychology. And we teach that stuff all the time.
Yeah.
I did want to ask you some follow up. We talked a little bit about the Aspire program before, I believe, but I wanted to talk a little bit more about that. How has it evolved for you guys since we last spoke, and what kind of feedback are you getting from customers and just the print community in general?
I think when we started out, I thought it would be as easy as bringing people in the door and getting them trained up on embellishments and, giving them some tools to price, to market, to sell. And like I always say, like kind of taking the boogeyman out of doing it. But I think it's so much more than that. I think on the design side, you brought out the point, you and I were talking in Chicago, like let's say there's a million designers out there in the printerverse, right? Or in the design verse, whatever you want to call it. There's probably about 100 people that we could call kind of expert level CMYK plus digital embellishment, print deck, whatever you want to call it, for that are can call themselves like the kind of experts in that field. 100. Think about that for a second. So I think the problem is a lot of people come through designer training and there's, let's say, 100 designers on there. I think the biggest thing we have to follow on is we need to make sure that we've got kind of level 2, level 3, level 4, like almost like a learning continuum for the design side, because there's not a one size fits all, I think, is what I'm starting to realize, right? So that's why, like, obviously, we signed with Taktiful about a month ago, to be our strategic partner for delivering on that 360 closed loop, like showing salespeople how to sell it. And that's the big thing that we're doing with Taktiful. That's on the sales end, but yeah, on the, like I said, coming back to the design side, it's not a linear continuum. It's so nuanced, and it's almost like, you've got binary learning, and then you've got almost like like quantum computing, right? Where it's not ones and zeros. It's multi-layered. There's different skill sets out there, right? Because AI now is going to have a different role coming into design. I think we need to kind of figure out that portion of AI. So I know it's a complicated answer. So that's on one end, but also, from once the files are getting down to the device, making sure that guys and gals, the operators are taking those print ready 6, 7 color files, whatever that might be, and knowing exactly what to do with them. It's much more. I'm using the word nuanced, but that's a fancy word for complicated, right?
Yeah.
Way of solving for this, and because we've got the widest array of CMYK plus embellishment capabilities in the toner space, I think it's our obligation, not even responsibility. Whatever's bigger than responsibility, I'm going to say obligation. I think
Good
that's,
word.
yeah. Let's go with that. I think we've got to make sure that it's our obligation, that we're kind of the stewards, if you will, of making sure to bring that through. And it's not a part-time project, right? So we call it the Amplify program, but I'm trying to figure it's almost like the Amplify commitment, right, if you will. And we were over in, like I said, in Madrid, Spain this past week, and the community of these amazing, over close to 200 different partners that they've signed up in Europe were very interested, coming up to me and saying, hey, this new design guide that you guys did, can I get a copy of that, right? How can I get into the designer training? Do you do this? Can you give me some examples that I can show? So it's also our responsibility to give these print ready files, whether it's, direct mail, business cards, brochures for high-end commercial retail space, for high-end vacation packages, luxury goods, food and beverage, retail, real estate, automotive, all these different things that we can go kind of a mile wide, but also a mile deep, and giving them applications that they can use to help kind of drive this ahead, because it's not your typical printer that's doing this anymore. It's like, to your point, is all the different brands out there, packaging, looking to do this stuff. So yeah, lots. And as I'm sitting here, I'm just thinking, man, I forgot about one more thing I got to get done and deliver. but it's this evolving thing. But as you guys know, you're obviously a part of it, so you know
Yeah.
the story.
Yeah, I mean one thing is like I think you're correct to say it's like a continuum, right? It's
Mm,
and what I'm learning about the design side too is as I start to listen to the Matt Red Bears and I go on the
yeah,
designer meetup,
exactly,
go on the
exactly.
designer meetups or whatever. What I'm hearing is like designers have to know quite a bit about the production,
Yeah.
especially in the digital embellishment space, right? Because they need to know to understand how to design it so that when it does get to that operator on the production
I
side,
was gonna
that,
say, like, what's
that
been
it
your
works.
experience on that? Because I mean, I'm just sitting, I'm talking, but like, what's been your experience on having those Red Bear design sessions? I'd be curious to hear that.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's a lot of obviously there's a lot of design expertise with design tools and kind of setting up the layers and understanding the processes. But the more that they learn about the production side of it, that's a lot of what he sort of teaches is like you've got to understand what that machine's doing
Right,
so that you can reverse engineer it to design it and lay it out so that you have a good outcome on that
right.
end. And I think the more we do that, and we will be doing that as we go with helping you guys with Aspire and just doing our normal thing. I think that's what we need to focus on is that crossover between production on machine and design in
And
the
what
ideation phase.
machine do you guys focus for in the design sessions? And maybe I'm putting myself into a corner by thinking device centric technology. Like, are you guys focusing on foiling? Are you focusing on
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter really
right
for us. Like, but whatever it is, there are nuances, right? And when we take people through boot camp,
nuance? So you just use the word nuance now.
it's a good word. Yeah,
It's a great word.
yeah.
Word of the day.
So you have to understand. All right, what device do you have, and what are the peculiarities? And when we
Right,
take people through boot camps, that's part of what Ken Heising on our team kind of focuses on. And then Matt also will focus. Well, what device do you have? Okay, that helps to inform
right.
how to design. But I guess the overarching point is like there's a crossover there, but you can't just design in a vacuum and you can't just produce in a vacuum, right?
But you can't market in a vacuum either, right? And
Correct.
I think that like if you take a look at it, when we were talking, even 6 months ago, a year ago, 2 years ago, when you and I have known each other for over a decade, right? But I think when this stuff first started coming out, we first would say stuff like you can sell it for better margin, you can sell it for more money. I think we've kind of have sort of made this whole hog mind shift to the fact that no, this should just be the way that you work, and with that you will win more business by just being better, right? And that the margin will come, but you can outrun the margin by just winning more business, right? So, but by doing that, you need to make sure that this is table stakes for how you run your applications. Because at the end of the day, from our end of from where I sit, it doesn't break the bank to use the specialty inks, the golds, the silvers, the whites, the clears, the pinks. A lot more coming as well, right? So, like, so I'm at the point now where I'm like, yeah, you can sell it for more money, or you can just, be better than the next guy or girl, or whatever, and you can just like I say, I use the term you've probably seen, make more. You
Yeah.
can just win more, right? And I love
Yeah.
that term more. So I think that we need to normalize this thing to where it just becomes the way they work. But man, there's a lot of different areas that we have to hit on, from design to the marketing piece to the actual operator to the follow on. Okay, so you did this already. What are you doing next? Like what's the there? So it's an interesting conversation for sure.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think both things can be true, right? I always talk about, and Kevin loves this phrase, like we're in the value era for digital embellishments, right? Because not everybody has it on every street corner. So it can be a differentiator in terms of that, but
Yeah.
also, as you said though, like we also preach, embellishment first, like
Okay.
or embellishment always. But we also teach people like don't treat it like normal print technologies. When we get, we're like kids in a candy store. Like I remember when we were throwing QR codes on everything, it didn't necessarily make sense because it was a new tech.
Yeah.
Same thing is true for embellishments. There's going to be jobs. There's going to be certain use cases where it doesn't really make sense to embellishment or embellish a lot, right? And what we're teaching people is like the more subtle you can be about adding that digital embellishment, sometimes the more impact that you can make, right? If you just completely a flood coat varnish all over the thing and just make it crazy, that might not get as noticed as like taking just the rims of the woman's glasses on the brochure and embellishing that, right? That
Yeah, there
might,
is a certain understated subtlety to it. You don't want to go nuclear or
yeah.
overdo it.
Who'd I have? I just had somebody on. Gosh, who was it? Jeff Howitz with Team Concept.
Yeah, yeah,
Just
yeah.
interviewed him. Amazing thing that he said to me is he's just like people if you take a highlighter to a book and you just highlight everything, it's no longer highlighted. Like you're
That's so
basically
true.
you're basically just reading the book, right? It's the best analogy
Yeah,
ever.
you're going to, yeah, where you want the eye to go to train on one thing. Yeah,
Strategically highlight that thing, right? To
yeah.
bring things out.
Okay, let me ask you
So
this question. Sorry, I
yeah.
know this.
Are
Sorry.
you wait a minute. I'm the interviewer here. What's
Well, because well, remember, I'm always learning, Eric. So here's my question for you. Somebody comes to you, and you and I are living in the value era of embellishment. Somebody comes to you and says, Eric, my customers just aren't asking for this. What do you say?
it's we hear that all the time, and
That's
it's
the golden question.
that's a marketing problem though. That's a marketing problem. Like what could you be doing if your customers aren't asking? You know why? Because you're not showing them. And
Right.
it's a don't tell show, right? So one of the best hacks that Kevin taught me, and we teach it to every printer that we talk to, is if you have jobs that are coming from a reliable customer
Yeah.
and they're not being embellished one copy, and then send it along and say here's your piece embellished.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more. I
See what
think
you see
that's
what you
right.
like, right? Now, guess
Yeah.
what they're going to do from that point on?
Yeah.
They might ask for it now,
Yeah.
right? But you
Exactly.
can't ask for something that you don't know
Well,
exists.
you can't wait like Steve Jobs. Remember we talked about that Steve Jobs when he rolled out the iPod, the iPhone, all that stuff, the whole iFamily. The market wasn't asking for it, right? But he gave them what they needed. They just didn't know it at the time. I mean, Henry
It's the old
Ford,
Henry Ford, bro.
yeah, if you asked a farmer what he needed, what did they say? Faster
Faster
horse,
horse. Yeah.
right?
Because
Yeah,
they
so
don't know
yeah,
that an automobile exists. So it's the same way with digital embellishment. It's like, this exists. Check this out.
yeah,
Or like Bill Gillespie, when he just did one of our boot camp sales sessions, like he always goes into it and says, "Hey, I've got this cool new machine. Check out what it can do."
yeah,
Right. So even it has to be even subtle on that end. Like let's play, let's experiment. And what you start to see is like when people start to see the output, they're like, "Oh wow, oh wow, oh wow." But it's a total marketing problem for in a cop out for you to say, "Oh, my customers just aren't asking for it." And then obviously the next objection will be, "Well, they don't want to pay more for it." Right?
right,
But why do they not want to pay more for it? Because you're not selling the value, you're selling the price.
yeah,
And
yeah.
it's easy. So I want to get a bit tactical with you.
Okay,
Obvious pun, which was intentional.
I didn't get that.
If a shop wants to, it's a big neon sign behind me, bro.
Yeah. Oh, wait a minute. I was wearing my glasses. Sorry.
If a shop wants to start offering digital embellishment, and what are some common pitfalls you see them run into, and what should they actually focus on first?
If they want to introduce embellishments,
I want to start offering digital embellishment. What's how do they get started? Like how do we talk to them about it? How do you guys talk to them about it?
it's a really good question. So I think the number one thing is you listen. I'm gonna take off my Fuji hat for a second, and I'm gonna try to be more industry specific, right? I take a look at technology partners that are out there that are doing it. I listen to what the recommendations are. I take the coaching, and the first thing I do is I sort of say, okay, well, what are applications that I could up my game with? What are customers bringing in what are applications that I could quickly make the switch over with? Is it direct mail? Yeah, probably. Is it the business cards? Is it postcards? Is it vacation packages? Whatever it might be, to sort of say I can quickly efficiently apply these to these applications, identify those, and then go through, do the training, whether it's us or whether it's one of our OEM competitors. I mean, Xerox has got a great program with Genesis. I know that there's you guys out there who are, we collaborate on different things. There's great programs out there that you can align on, right? So it's making sure that you know everything that's out there in the whole design verse or printer
I
verse,
like
whatever you
that.
want to call it. So you need to be aware of what's out there, and then also to your point, I think you need to market yourself. So don't wait for customers to ask for stuff. You've got to go out there and you've got to sell it, obviously, and then also, but you've got to there's different things like we've got a price guide. Do you want to price for high end commodity or high end non commodity value based pricing where you're going to be able to get only a niche offering, or are you going to do somewhere in the middle, or are you going to just say, hey, I'm going to offer this at a tiny little fragment of a margin to cover my costs, but I'm going to outrun it by winning more business? I do think that's the more pragmatic and realistic approach, if we're being honest, versus sort of saying, I'm going to go out and I'm going to get 500% gross margin on these. You're quickly going to find that you don't start there. You might end up there, but you don't start there. So start with a humble heart, but know exactly, have a focus, steal your vision on where you want to go. Learn from others who have done it and who've maybe failed in it as well, right? I mean, there's no shame in the game to say that I failed here and here's the lessons learned.
Most of the time, that's how you learn.
That's how you learn, right? Is where did we come from and how do we get to where we want to go? So I mean that's kind of that, and that's more of a that's just lessons learned over the years of, trying to show customers and designers pretty pictures and just say just do it and you'll be successful. And I mean, I'm oversimplifying it, but it's, back when we put these things out in, 2016, 2017, 2018, frankly, that's kind of how we talked, right? And not you, Eric Vessels, but kind of me, sort of saying, all of a sudden there's technology that can do it. You can't assume that people are going to know how to get there from here. So you got to provide that roadmap on how to get there from here, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, totally makes sense.
Yeah.
And this is kind of echoes from the last time we spoke a lot about it's curiosity, right? Like I hear what you're saying is basically like go out there and learn. Like go ask, go listen, go find out, right?
Yeah, I mean, speaking of that, like I said, like I just read this book called Digitally Curious by Andrew Grill. Great initials, by the way, AG. And he talks about your guide to navigating the future of AI and all things tech, and then he does talk about the design element in there, of I can grow or I can create pictures now of in my mind's eye what downtown Toronto looks like with rush hour traffic with a sunset, in mid-April or whatever that might be. Like you're there, but yeah, you got to be curious. To your point, I think being digitally curious to me is kind of that next sort of that next buzzword of in the industry, but it's probably going to be the most important because it's going to create for you, it's going to give to you what you didn't know about that next phase of digital embellishments, wherever you want to go in this industry, print, design, coding, whatever it is. So yeah, I would say being digitally curious is my biggest piece of advice.
So and you've mentioned curiosity and passion. I think in our last chat as being really important critical drivers in this space. How do you personally stay curious? And have you seen any print leaders that are fostering that culture inside their teams? Any exam don't have to name names, but like I'm wondering like is that just a personality thing where curious people are curious, or is there a way that you can foster that curiosity
I
to
don't
kind of
know.
learn more?
That's a deep question, like
It's
because
a
I
good one,
think
right?
because you're saying, are you born that way, or can you learn to become that way?
Yeah, I don't have the answer to that. I guess my question to you is like how does you personally, Andrew, how do you maintain that level of curiosity and that culture of learning?
So for me, I think it's being scared of something.
Ooh, fear is a big driver, right?
Fear is a big driver, but we all take a motivation of the fear of falling behind,
Mm,
of finding yourself in a
FOMO,
room of
baby.
people. I mean, I mean, yeah, like exactly right. I mean, I have these dreams where I'm in a room full of smart people. They all know what's going on, and I have no idea, right? And you wake up in this cold sweat, and you're like, "Oh gosh,
That's
gosh."
actually happened to me. I didn't dream it.
Yeah, been there a few times, kind of thing. I don't want to be there again. So I think that it's almost that fear of falling behind about, and the worst part is that, when you hear people using buzzwords and you kind of roll your eyes and say, oh, whatever. But it turns out the joke's on you because they knew what they were talking about and they actually had a full, War and Peace novel to back up what they were
Yeah.
talking about, right? Whereas you just thought it was a buzzword. So I think for me, I think that the big thing is being digitally curious. There was a requirement of fear of the unknown, but being curious enough that you want to be able to solve for that fear. But that's just me, right? There could be other people who are diving into, quantum computing, 10 years before it's even going to be a thing, just based on the fact that they just want to know. And because they're fearless. So I think fearlessness and fear are almost, mutually inclusive, if you will, of one another, right?
Well, you got to, I mean, at some point, like I mean, we talked about earlier in our chat here, we talked about failure being a big driver to learning. I think it's the same thing with fear. You got to step into the fear,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
confront it because that uncomfortable place is where learning occurs also. Like,
Yeah, it does. And I think that also, but I still think so. We talk about this whole wanting to get in, and, we're using the term digitally curious about AI, predictive AI, generative AI, agentic AI, which is, I think, going to be one of the more underrated things about artificial intelligence. But I think that knowing where the human mind plays into that and how the two can kind of, survive and thrive, if you will, together. So that's maybe we're deviating into a deeper hole, or maybe that's podcast number 3. I
hey,
don't know.
listen, we could definitely be talking a lot about AI. Like
Yeah.
it's insane. And that was
Yeah.
one of the questions I was going to ask you. We might as well get into it. Is trends. And this may be it. What's bubbling up now that you think people aren't talking about, or maybe talking too much about? Is there anything people aren't
I
grasping that they should be, or are there anything that's like overhyped? Like where are you seeing things from a
If
trend
there's
standpoint?
anything overhyped, I mean, I think that there's a few things. So AI and robotics are a big thing that are big, right? So when we went to Drupa, one of the things that creeped up was on a trend at a macro level was that
The automation, yeah.
there's arms at the back of all these presses that are taking the human touch points out of the equation, lifting it and stacking it and moving it to your Morgana, your Esco, whatever it might be. That kind of blew my mind. I mean, AI is blown out, from there's the generative AI capabilities that you can do design with. That's on that side. There's predictive AI that you're looking at from an automation, workflow automation. But for me, it was the Agentic AI. That's the new one that's coming that I don't think a lot of people are talking about. That's where you're creating, these AI tools that they're going out looking for
Agents.
specific. Yeah, they're the agents that you're sending out looking for certain things, like looking at a photograph. Let's use, for example, like the Fuji comes from the photographic space, not just conventional print photographs, as you know. They're going to go out, they're going to automatically look at photos, assess and correct them on the fly for whether it's red eye removal or shadow, or if there's too much light behind my big head here, right? Like it's going to look for things and it's automatically going to fix and correct it, but continue to get smarter and smarter and smarter and smarter. So for me, it's agentic AI. I don't know where that really begins or ends, because I think that's what makes some of this stuff smarter than you and I, basically, right?
For sure. For sure.
But I do know that the agentic AI is going to have a big space when it comes to design, correction, but also at the service end of the print space, right? Like how is it going to help with service? So I think it's got a big thing there. People, I think we're sort of saying, well, I think that predictive AI has got a space there, and I think they're kind of one and one A the way that they behave. So I think, yeah, that's for me what I notice.
Yeah,
What about you?
it's same thing.
Yeah.
Like we're playing around. I mean, we're obviously playing around with a lot of generative stuff on the software side of our business.
Oh yeah.
A lot of that's some news. That news on that front's going to really pick up. Not really. I'm here to talk too much about that, but we're playing in that space. We're obviously playing in the
Well,
content space of generating
you
stuff.
teased at me at Printing United some of the stuff that's coming. Like, you can put in a couple keystrokes of give me a blue and a yellow and create me a University of Michigan, Block M logo or something like that. And I was just like, what? Like,
Yeah, yeah. Well, the cool thing is, I think it's going to be such a helper to like what in the digital embellishment space specifically. Obviously, there's design challenge, right? Like
mm,
our goal eventually is to really make designing for this stuff, democratize it to where
mhm,
everyone can do it. Like that's
yeah,
our overarching goal, and preview what it's going to look like, and then get the printed output. So just it's I think it's going down the road to where it's going to be. I think there's still going to be a huge need for designers, because there's always I think there's a creative aspect that we're always going to need humans from a creative aspect. I know there's big stuff happening and all the generative AI stuff, but I still feel like those are going to be tools that designers can use
yeah,
rather than to replace them. And same thing on the printing side, like you said, workflow automation. It's just all about giving us better tools that can do kind of the mundane stuff,
yeah,
stuff
yeah.
that takes a lot of time, and let us humans kind of flourish in our curiosity to be more
Well, it's the
creative.
yeah, you nailed it. It's two things. It's curiosity and it's emotion, right? And I guess, one could be essentially an emotion, but I think curiosity and the emotion act of it. I mean, because if you look at things like ChatGPT, it's giving you an answer based on everything it sees out there, right? And it's going to say, based on probability, here's what the answer is for your question, right? Whereas the humans, they can kind of look in things and they can sort of factor in emotion as well as intellect and sort of say, based on emotion and intellect, here's what the answer is going to be. And it's going to be a while before you can get to that point. I'm sure
Oh
we
man,
will, but
I'm not even sure that it will ever be there. I
no.
don't think people understand how complex and mysterious the human brain is. There hasn't been a single AI generated video or piece of content that there wasn't some small sliver in my brain that went, something's off,
Yeah.
right? Like there's something's off,
Like if you said, what's the best bourbon, right? Do you
right?
think you would get back like an answer, or do you think you'd get back, well,
No, yeah, you would
like,
get an answer.
well, no. Do you think you get back an answer that was based on the feedback that's out there in
Yeah,
the
there would be a big. They would search all the
right?
sources and come back with blah 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 blah
But would
blah.
it be the one that
But it's
just
not
gets
going to be the same as asking me,
no, I
human
know,
Eric,
but would
right?
it be the one that sold the most? Because, or is because there's always here's the one that sells the most, but we all know that this one that's made in somewhere in the nether regions in Kentucky, we all
Yeah,
know that's the best one.
the
So
nether regions.
the nether
That's
region.
the most polite way I've ever heard someone say boondocks. The
That's probably
nether
where
regions.
that's probably where the best bourbon's made, right?
It really is. It's just down the road,
But
actually.
that's my whole point. Is like you're going to get answers based on an aggregate of information that's available out there, not based on what's here, right? So that's that emotional because all those things are
For sure. So
based on
what's next
stuff.
for you guys? What's where will we see you next? What's coming down the pipe
Yeah, so
from a new post to
we got
Fuji?
lots on the go. We've got Amplify coming up here
See you.
in a few weeks. I think that you and I think we've got a panel chat going on at the event, so we're going to talk. Maybe we can create a little more fun at that. Printing United coming up. We've also got the paper specs CMYK plus embellishment virtual event that's coming up. I also think there's a live one that's going to be in San Francisco, if I'm not mistaken. Sabine, don't get mad at me if I misspoke of that.
No, she didn't. I was just actually, she's about to be on the show, and I was reaching out to her, and she said that could be one of the things that we could talk about.
Okay, so
That's
good.
absolutely right.
So make sure you told because I don't want to get mad here. So we got that coming up. We've got some more partner open houses. Like I said, we just launched two new CMYK Plus embellished products with the 285 and the 2100. So we got lots and lots of good stuff going on. I'm probably forgetting a whole whack of it, but yeah,
That's good. We'll see it. People pay attention to the news sources out there and pay attention to LinkedIn and follow. Make sure to follow Andrew and myself on LinkedIn. Lots of content goes there. But man, appreciate another conversation. Thanks for being the first return guest. I'm glad I didn't scare you off the first time.
no, no. I'm looking forward to the third one, but that's probably going to be that'll be a while. I don't want to push my luck here, so.
It's got to be at least like 24 episodes from now. So we'll see what happens. Every 20, 30 episodes we can check in with you.
So we'll see you on the road, man. We'll
We'll
see you
see you on
then.
the road, man. Thanks for the time. I appreciate talking again, and also appreciate the partnership and trying to elevate digital embellishment as a whole for the industry.
Yeah.
Appreciate the
Thanks,
partnership
Eric.
we have there.
Yeah. Thanks for you and all you guys do. Appreciate
Thanks,
you guys.
man.
Yeah.
Appreciate you.
Take care.